AI spend very much in focus for investors on the heels of big tech earnings. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg remaining confident on the company's spending plans, reiterating Meta's outlook on the earnings call. Meanwhile, Microsoft's weaker than expected intelligence cloud forecast sparking investor concern. You're seeing that reflected in share price here this morning. You got Microsoft shares off nearly 5% here ahead of the bell. Let's bring in Paul Meeks. He's Harvest Portfolio Management's Chief Investment Officer and Wall Street Beats partner. Paul, it's great to have you back here on Yahoo Finance. Let's start with the upbeat report and maybe reaction that we're seeing play out from Meta's earnings last night. Certainly, we had Mark Zuckerberg once again doubling down on the spending plans that we first heard about last week in terms of AI and that roadmap ahead for Meta. Wall Street is buying in, are you?
I'm definitely buying in. Now, I've held Meta for years, and so my cost basis is a fraction of where the stock trades today. But if you take a look at the marquee tech names, I put Meta right at the top of the class. I was on the quarterly webcast live yesterday, and I really like the vision that the company has laid out. I thought Zuckerberg was clear and crisp, and I do believe, I don't think it's with too much hyperbole, that this will be a great year for the company. Very well positioned in these times.
Does a great year for the company rely more on a pivotal year, as they were calling it, for Metaverse, or the year where Llama and open source become the most advanced and widely used AI models that they talked about on the call?
I think it's the latter. Now, I don't expect to see a lot of AI monetization from anybody, but I like the way that they're set up with their Llama open source model. I think that there is a good shot that this will become the global standard for such models. The other thing I'm excited about is, they plant seeds and then hopefully we have some growth over time. And I think this year, the monetization of Instagram Reels could be a real driver.
When do those seeds need to sprout, Paul? What's the timeline that investors are going to be grading Meta up against?
Well, it's typically a couple of years. What Meta does is they develop, release a product, and once it gets to 1 billion users, which would be a huge effort for any company, but more realistic for Meta, then they swoop back in and try to monetize those users. And it looks like, for example, with Reels, that they'll get there pretty quickly. And I expect that they will get there over time with Llama and AI.
All right, Paul, so let's compare that to what we heard from Microsoft, because you can see it play out even just in the stock reaction here this morning. You got Microsoft shares under pressure, off more than 4%. They're struggling, it seems like, to build enough data centers to handle the demand that we're seeing in AI. A slowdown there in its cloud business is also causing a bit of a concern. What's the read-through to you from these numbers?
Yeah, I've been covering the company since it went public in '86. And usually the company is, brilliant on their conference calls. Company is always tightly managed, deserves a lot of respect, particularly since Satya Nadella became the CEO in 2014. However, last night's quarterly webcast, which I was also on live, I was a little bit disturbed, a little bit confused. One of the things that they talked about with their non-Azure, non-AI business was some problems with sales execution. You don't typically see that. And then they talked about and mentioned 10 times on the call that they were struggling with sales and scale motions. Can somebody tell me what that means in English? I'm not sure, and I'm supposed to be an expert in the name. And so I was downtrodden yesterday after Microsoft. I would not buy the stock, even on this dip. I've owned the stock for a long time. I'm not selling it either. What happens today, however, is it looks like it's going to fall through on heavy volume. It's 200-day moving average support. And that's going to be, sadly, a pretty bad technical indicator.
Paul, with that technical indicator in mind, and even more so kind of the thread that Microsoft is trying to weave on this call, talking about OpenAI, but also acknowledging what rattled the markets earlier this week with DeepSeek, how does that play into the trajectory for the investment that Microsoft was out early in front of to try and pour billions of dollars into OpenAI, which now is going to face its own conundrum of making sure that they can split off part of the business that's going to be profitable versus what should be open source?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I was also a little bit disappointed that we didn't get a clear CapEx budget or confirmation of the previous CapEx budget from Microsoft, whereas Meta was, spot on and reconfirmed everything. DeepSeek is interesting to me. It's obviously a great innovation. Everybody says that, even their competitors. However, we'll see over time, particularly if Trump and company cut off their access to all NVIDIA chips, even earlier generations, if they can keep that momentum going. So as it pertains to AI-driven CapEx spending, which has really driven the AI trade the last couple of years, I'm a little bit hesitant, but I'm not throwing in the towel on it yet.
Paul, thanks so much for taking the time here, breaking down some of these huge earnings reports that came out yesterday representing the Mag 7 companies here. We've got even more of those forthcoming. Appreciate it, Paul.
See you later.
See ya.